Thank you all for being here. My name is Bill Taormina. There's a picture of me up there. I guess I should comb my hair differently so I look like the same guy. I was born and raised in Anaheim, California, home of Disneyland. And my claim to fame is I was the first kid in Disneyland when my father took me there in a garbage truck in 1954 when I was 3 years old. He was there to collect money from Walt Disney. And as my mother recalls it, as she sat in the passenger seat pregnant with my sister, my father went to the security guard and said, "I got to go see the guy up there with the mustache standing by that big mountain." Security guard says, "Excuse me, Cosmo, you're not coming anywhere near the man that's standing by the mountain." He says, No, I know that guy. So my father starts waving out the window, and Walt Disney says, "Hey, Cosmo, come on in." So he goes to Walt Disney and says, "Walt, I need $1,500. You haven't paid your garbage bill for quite a while, and I got to feed my family. I got the kid there, and my wife's pregnant." Walt says, "I'm sorry, Cosmo, I don't have any cash, but I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to make you one of the 33 members of our original group, Monsanto, Kodak. You can be on our club, and we're going to go ahead and give you stock in the company." My father says, "Stock? How am I going to feed this kid? What is that? I need the cash." Well, if you'd given him the stock, I wouldn't be sitting here today, but suffice to say, that was a long time ago. And so 10 years ago, after my brother and I built our private garbage company up to one of the largest privately owned firms in the nation, I decided that I didn't want to leave my legacy for my grandkids, that I was a garbage man, and decided, just like Izek, we're going to hear in a moment, that our legacy needs to be something more and greater than that. So we committed ourselves as a family to solving the homeless issues in Orange County. We built 6 shelters there, but we don't call them shelters, we call them life rebuilding centers, and that's what we're going to talk to you about today. Along with the Salvation Army and Illumination Foundation and a whole bunch of other great nonprofits, we became catalysts, not players, but catalysts in the solution. Basically, we can do things with and for government that they can't do themselves. We stand in between the issue and the government officials, and we help them make the bold decisions that they need to make. And Izek's going to tell you more about what we're going through right now in LA in a moment. I met Izek through a wonderful man that is known throughout the nation as the hanging judge, if you will, Judge David Carter. We worked together in Orange County at doing all these deals and solving lawsuits there. And when it was time to fix LA, I was introduced to Izek through his honor. He is quite an inspiration to both of us. He's a former Marine, and he's a take charge individual, and he's who's inspired us both to move forward on this project. So Izek, if you want to know about him, I highly recommend that you watch the movie about Izek's life. You can see it on YouTube. It's called For the Love of Money. Make a note of it, For the Love of Money. Outstanding motion picture that Izek co-wrote that stars James Caan and a number of other wonderful actors that you'll recognize. But it really tells about the individual and how he got here. So Izek, can you give us some background about your background, how you came to America, a little about the Shomof group, and just look at the people that will, help us understand who you are a little bit better.
Yes. Back in 1973, when I was 14 years old, my family decided to move to California. So we landed here in LA, and our first apartment that we moved into, I was in Van Nuys on Oxnard Boulevard. It's a beautiful, brand new complex. I got to tell the story because that amazed me. So we rented a 3-bedroom apartment, and we were about maybe 7, 8 family members living there. And in the courtyard of that apartment building, there was a huge swimming pool. That you open your door from your apartment into the swimming pool amazed me, because in Israel back in the 70s, you don't see that. You have not seen it. We maybe had one swimming pool in town that everyone was spending their time in. But anyway, I had to tell that story because I spent 3 months of my days that I landed here in LA in that swimming pool, day in, day out. From there, after a year, we moved. I was enrolled to Van Nuys Junior High School, and then from there, a year later, we moved to Hollywood, and then I was enrolled into Hollywood High. I spent a year in Hollywood High School, and then at the age of 16, I got my driving license and was driving down in downtown LA, and I've seen a burger joint that was shut down, and I basically reached out to the property owner and said, I'd like to open up a business here. I'd like to open up the burger joint. In the beginning, he looked at me as a kid trying to open up a business, and he said, who you want to open it for? I said, for my uncle. So he says, go get your uncle to come over here. So I reached out to my uncle. I said, come down here. I have potential opening up a business here. And he showed up with me, and we ended up taking that burger joint. And by the time I reached to the age of 18, I ended up having 3 burger joints. And this is something that made me some money, because I would buy them and sell them to Korean, immigrated from Korea, and I've done 3 of them. And my passion in life was always, as a kid, American automobiles, or even European automobiles. I'm a huge car collector today, but back then, in the late 70s, I always wanted to do something with cars. So I opened up my first body shop at the age of 18. It's out for a lot of people, a lot of you guys to believe it, but at the age of 18, I opened up my first body shop. And how did I open up that shop? I was driving down on Pico Boulevard back in 1977, and I've seen a sign on a corner lot, an old gas station. It says for sale or lease. And I reached out. I don't know if you guys remember, you may not remember, back in the day, there was La Mancha Development. They used to do a lot of shopping centers throughout the city of LA. That was one of their locations. And I reached out to them, and I said I wanted to lease that old gas station to create a party shop over there. And the owner of La Mancha Development was an older guy, and he had 2, I think 2 sons, or one of them was a son-in-law. So I said I'd like to lease it out, and he said, I'll do better for you. I'll advise you, if you can't buy it, buy real estate and don't lease. If you have the ability to buy it and do not lease it. And I asked him, how much would you sell it to me for? He says, I'll make you a good deal that you cannot refuse. And he sold it to me for $90,000. And I put a $25,000 money that I saved from my burger joints, and I opened up my first shop. And then at the age of, I would say 21, in 1980, 81, I decided that I should go on and demolish my old gas station, the shop that I had over there, and I started building auto bays. And I started leasing them for $1,000 each. I built 10 auto bays, and that was generating me good cash flow. And from there, I did a refi, and I bought another one, and that's how I got into my real estate business.
Outstanding. Isaac, thank you for that background. That just shows you, 18 years old, his first piece of real estate. Today, it starts with a B, his portfolio. So now we're going to tell you about our project. And to say the least, this is something that Isaac's family has decided to do instead of building out one of the largest buildings in Los Angeles on the largest pieces of land that's available in LA. Thank you. That's slide 1 we'll talk about in a moment. Isaac's going to describe that to you. This facility that we call the Los Angeles Life Rebuilding Center is going to be a very comprehensive place where up to 5,500 beds will be. But it's not where people just go there to vegetate for a day and then get thrown back on the street. This is a place where they stay for 6 months, and that every possible need that they might have, from drug rehabilitation to medical to mental. It's all going to be under one roof. All the nonprofits that are presently working in Skid Row have their specialties. They'll all be working as a network in this one building. And again, Izek could have done this, could have built something else there called the Mail Order District, which is a large project that he would have built hundreds and thousands of square feet of retail and residential, but he's made a logical and personal decision not to do that. So Izek, with respect to that, can you tell us what inspired you, what made you change from the mail order district to the homeless facility, the Life Rebuilding Center? What is it that changed your mind?
So for a lot of you guys that live in LA, you know the homeless issue. It used to be downtown issue only, and today you see it all over the city of LA. Like Bill said, that property, I own it for almost 9 years now. I entitled it, and I have plans to build, and permits, not only plans, permit, to build 1,000 residential units, 200,000 square feet of creative office, and 150,000 square feet of retail. I put all that aside once I met Bill. Bill introduced me to what he has done in Anaheim, in Orange County, the facility that he basically built, the Life Rebuilding Center. He invited me. I walked one of his locations, and it literally amazed me. And I said, from that time that I've seen his Life Rebuilding Center, I said, this is the solution for LA. I said, I got 1.8 million square feet building sitting on a 25 acres land, and we can potentially do as many as 10,000 beds, and not only beds, we're not calling it shelter, it's a Life Rebuilding Center, not beds, bunk beds. It's like each space, each homeless will have their own cubicle, their own space to be with storage. Just like Bill have done in Anaheim, there would be a barber shop, there would be dental office, there would be pharmacy, there would be professional people to rehabilitate people, and basically hoping that those people, the homeless with no hope, that their life is broken, living on the streets of LA, were able to come and get their dignity back, rehabilitate their life, and give them job training, potentially finding them jobs, and have them go back to society and potentially get a job and be able to take care of themselves and pay for their own rents and not to be dependent on the government for the rest of their life.
So there you go. How you like that, folks? Thank you, Izek. It's a beautiful thing. You know, the first day I met Izek, we walked through the Sears building, and we were all done with our tour. He said, you know, Bill, this could really be something. My mother, he said, used to tell me, Izek, if you do the right thing and God is willing, everything will work out the way it's supposed to. And he turned to me and he said, Bill, God willing, this project will take place. And Izek, I believe God is willing.
I do too.
Yes, sir. Let me tell you about what we've got here on the second slide. The first slide you saw, if we could go just back one slide real quick. Thank you. There you see the building. I'll show you a site plan in just a moment. I'm going to walk through these slides briefly out of respect for your time. In the center, we've got the 1.6 million square feet building, and surrounded that is another 15 acres for a total of 26 acres of land. Okay, now we'll go to the second slide real quick. What we've got here is 2,000 supportive housing, permanent supportive housing units that are going to be built surrounding the main building. The entire facility will be built in the way that it will become a community center and a homeless service center for the whole Boyle Heights area. Our mission statement is to clean up Skid Row and revive it back to what it was before it was Skid Row, concurrently with putting this place together. We're going to do this in a phased approach, which we'll talk about momentarily. We have the Salvation Army, Volunteers of America, Illumination Foundation, and Be Well organization all signed up to be the service providers for this facility. So this is not a pipe dream. We've already spoken to all of these individuals that provide these services, and they're all excited to be a part of it because it's unprecedented in terms of its size and scale. So Isaac, again, when you walk into your office today, you have to step over people, right, that are on the sidewalk. And every time this gentleman has a chance to describe it, I have to kind of pull him back off the edge because he gets so emotional. And I just, it's hard to actually describe this because the amount of zeal that's inside of him is complete commitment. So let me go ahead and just take another minute and go through the next slide if we could. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. So how we're doing this is three phases. We've spoken to the city officials already, all 15 of our elected officials and all the county board of supervisors, the sheriff, and everybody else that is a stakeholder in the solution for homelessness. We all know that it's not working right now. It is working sort of, but the people are let out onto the street. There's no long-term care. There's no job training. In some cases there is, but in most cases it's just not consistent. So in our case here, what we have is a $410 million deal with land and building improvements. We're not asking for a penny from the county or the city. It's all going to be privately funded, and we're certainly speaking to the right audience here today. The deal is put together that Isaac's crafted is a long-term lease, a 20-year lease with an option to buy from the city after maybe 5 years. In terms of our cost per day, because of the scale, presently the city's paying about $120 per day per person for services, nothing like we're going to offer. We're going to be able to do it for $85 a day, including the cost of the building. So we're 30% less, and we're offering 300% more services. And again, that's all a function of scale. And our mission here is to continue to be catalysts, to make the city and make it an easy decision for them and take the risks that the city is unwilling and unable to make themselves. Real briefly, we're going to do it in three phases. The first one will be what we call immediate emergency relief. We're going to take the folks off of Skid Row and put them on the property and the surrounding areas in the vacant land. Second, we're going to build the Life Rebuilding Center under a contract with the city on a long-term lease. And finally, after that's done, we'll move the folks off the vacant land and put them back into the building and then build permanent supportive housing under ground leases. Okay, go to the next slide real quick. Thanks, Isaac. I'm just going to walk through these so we can get to questions and answers. We have a number of different ideas for permanent supportive housing. Certainly we could do the Texas donut where you build the parking structure and the apartments around it. But we've got another solution that doesn't cost $500,000 a unit. As you remember Judge Carter saying, this housing first idea is wonderful, but it's uneconomic. We've got ideas that will work for $50,000 a unit. They're pre-made factory homes. They're not shipping containers, but they're ADA-approved factory-made facilities that can be bolted on and put in there by a crane almost instantly. And that's $50,000 a unit. Let's go to the next slide real quick. One of the biggest and most important factors here is mental health. As you know, there's lots of folks that are out there right now that have been a function of being homeless for so long, and they're stranded on the street, and they've kind of lost their mind, if you will. We're going to take those folks in a mobile van, address them without having the police and fire have to do it. In the thing we've started in Orange County called Be Well OC, we're going to have Be Well LA. And the van goes out, takes up the individual, takes them, instead of going to the emergency room and standing in they call it wall time for the police officer or fireman for 2 hours, he's coming to our facility where we'll have a mental health treatment there, and he'll never see the likes of a hospital. But the hospitals will be a part of this as a network, so they'll be the service provider at our facility where we won't have to clog up the health system that we have. And then on the recuperative care side, a lot of the folks, after they've got back on their meds and they're squared away, they need to have help to get their mind put back together. That's going to be done by Illumination Foundation, and they do that now in Orange County. Next slide real quick. Just giving you guys an orientation because I know you'll have some questions. Here's an example that Isaac spoke of a moment ago about a typical unit. As you see in the center there, there's a table and chairs, there's storage cabinets. That happens to be one where 2 people can share. There's beds in each corner. If it's a family, we reconfigure it. If it's a larger family, we take the walls down. These walls are 5 feet high. Common air conditioning and common lighting in the space. Each floor plate is 160,000 square feet. There's 10 stories. Typical shelters that you see out there are about 30,000 square feet total. So this thing is hundreds of times bigger than what you normally see. But in any case, the folks have dignity. They have a place to have their storage. They have a place to talk with one another and network. Finally, let's take a look at the site plan, and then we'll open it up for questions. So there's the site plan. The pink areas there are the areas where permanent supportive housing will be built. The gray box in the middle is the existing building. Initially, we'll put the folks from the street into those pink areas in a large tent or some other function that the city's going to be giving ideas to us about. And then eventually, they'll all move into that gray building, and the pink area will become permanent housing. So obviously, this is a big deal. Izek may or may not be looking. I'm not speaking for him. He can very well speak for himself. He may or may not be looking for a construction loan and or a takeout loan. Certainly, we're here not soliciting you, but just telling you what our ideas are. And Arnie, with your permission, can we open it up to questions from the audience and maybe some
Sure, by all means. We have 2 ladies over there, Tamara and Chia. Raise your hands. If you have a question, raise your hand. They'll come over there with a mic and get your questions answered. Anybody have questions? Yes, right up here.
So what do you do with the critically addicted people on drugs? How do you handle that problem? And lastly, you know, San Francisco just had, there was an article in the Chronicle today where they put everybody into those the SROs, and they tore the walls out of those places, set them fire, and there was seemed like bad actors in there that were causing a lot of problems that they couldn't deal with. So there's 2 questions there.
I own over 1,000 units, low-income housing units. And Brilliant Corners, that is an organization that basically worked with the city, picking up homeless from the street and bringing them into permanent supportive housing. So they reached out to us, and they said, we need 100 units. We'll give you a good amount of rent and allow us to bring homelessness from the street and putting them into those units. I agreed, and I leased 100 units out of the 1,000 that I have, 100 units to that Brilliant Corner, bringing homelessness off the streets and putting them into those 100 units among the 1,000. I got to tell you, just the way you described it, that's what's happening there. They are destroying the 900 other people that are living there. It's impossible. They're taking trash through the window. They are putting their clothes, washing their clothes in the toilet and flushing the water, and the whole sewer line get clogged up. Those people cannot, and I always repeat and saying that to all of our elected officials, permanent supportive housing, it's not the solution. Life Rebuilding Center is the solution. You need to take them people, rebuild them life, help them to get their dignity, just like I said earlier, help them to get back their dignity and get them back to society, potentially, if they are going to be able to rebuild their life. The one that have mental health issue, they will go on to go to an institution for it. But the one that you can rebuild their life, hopefully if you can do 50% or even 30%, you have done a great thing. So yes, permanent supportive housing, putting them in residential unit is not the solution, maybe for very few of them, but the majority of them needs to get their life rebuilt. And that's what we are proposing.
And to add to what Izek said, the way we've got it designed is the worst case scenario, we pick them up in the van, deal with the drug issues, get them stabilized. Crisis stabilization unit is in our facility. That's step 1. Step 2 is for 6 months, we rebuild their life from the ground up. The ones that can't be rebuilt because they're just burned out, if I may, I don't want to use politically incorrect statements, but if they just won't work, they end up in an institution, not in our facility, because you can't mix that population with people that are like lost their job or they're normal, if I may. After that, after they're rebuilt, then they go into a housing unit because they're now stable. They're not going to tear the place apart. This whole idea of housing first, to your earlier question, just doesn't work. They tear the places apart, and we have evidence of it here. But that's an excellent question. We appreciate that. Ours is a graduated scale where they literally graduate from one step to the next. And it works perfectly, and it's been tried and true in Orange County with hundreds of people.
We have a question up here. She'll come with the microphone so everybody can hear you.
Do you know what the percentage is based on the locations you currently have and operate?
Yes. About 70% of the folks are drug user / addicted. And there's mental issues too, but it's about 70%.
And out of that 70%, how many of them were stabilized and came out of it?
In Orange County, the recidivism is about 10%. So 90%, once they go through the program, don't go back. 10% do. But remember, we're holding them until they're established the stability with doctors and other caseworkers that are on their case. We're not just letting them go back into the population. The worst thing you can do is take a drug addict off the street, feed him, and then kick him out at 6 o'clock in the morning and put him back on the street. All you're doing is growing the problem. And I can go on, but this, I'm trying to keep it finance oriented, but anyway, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? If you're in the back, just raise your hand. We'll have somebody come back. Right here, back there.
The cost of maintaining this project, once it is built, where is the money coming from? I assume there's government sources that will support from grants and private. What kind of costs are you looking at once this is fully operational on an annual basis?
The whole deal for 5,500 people would be $100 million a year, of which about $25 million is for the building and $75 million is for the operations. That breaks down, if you do the math, to the $80 a day per person. There are dozens and dozens of sources, all of which, in my personal opinion, are being mismanaged. We have talked at length to the CAO of LA. They are hiring consultants to channel and find that money to fund this project. That's going on presently. You don't read that in the newspaper, but with those on that staff level, they're finding the money. Most of it's coming from the federal and the state level through mental health funds. There's all the alphabet soup that I could tell you about where these funds are, but suffice it to say, and Judge Carter would verify this if he was sitting here, that there's more than enough money available. The problem is how it's being used and the time it's taking to apply it to the problem. So again, actually that's the easiest part of this whole thing. The arithmetic and the getting of the funds is easy, because what LA is going to save in police overtime and fire overtime and dealing with 73% of their calls are homeless calls. It's about the same amount as the amount of drug addiction. Every time the phone's ringing at the fire department and the PD, it's all about dealing with homeless individuals. The rest of them are more normal crimes. In Anaheim and Orange County, it's 61%. The money that they're going to save there and through the Be Well OC and Be Well LA, that will almost pay for this place, because it's millions of dollars a month that they're wasting that's from mismanagement. Hope that answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Any more questions? Right back there.
Good morning. What is your estimated time frame on the rollout of this with the phases that you mentioned earlier?
I actually brought our term sheet with us. We've indicated that we can name that tune in 9 months after we get a signed MOU that's sitting on the desk of the CAO. If we get that signed MOU, we believe, hopefully before this mayor election, which we'll close with that little summary, but let's assume we get that MOU signed on July 1st. Within 1 year, all in, including permits, building, getting everybody together and making the initial move, within 1 year, Skid Row will stop being what it is today. So during that 1 year, we'll be doing the construction on Izek's building, on the tenant improvement part, and we'll be moving the folks out of Skid Row into the temporary facilities surrounding that building. So long and short answer, 1 year.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Right up here, again? Wait, we gotta get you on. We're videoing this, so we gotta hear what you have to say. There we go.
It's really interesting what you guys are proposing. So you've got people down on Skid Row. What do you just pick them up and put them in the van? Suppose they don't want to go, and I mean, and how does the enforcement end of this work when people are breaking the law? Drug dealers are coming into the place trying to sell. How does that work?
Okay, so again, I wish Judge Carter was here and he would say this. The Boise lawsuit that happened where the Supreme Court said, if you don't have a bed, city, you got to let the people stay in the street. That's the summary of that lawsuit. Therefore, the lawsuit that was just settled in LA, you read it in the Times, requires 16,000 beds be created here, or the people stay in the street. We could solve the entire problem and put them all here, but it's too much in one area. We will create the beds, and then the city will be able to enforce its anti-camping ordinance. Anti-camping saying you just can't pitch a tent in your front yard or on my front steps or in front of Isaac's building. So the point is, if they don't come, they go to jail because we'll be able to enforce it. We've met with Sheriff Villanueva, we met with the LA police chief. All the people that would be the enforcers of what you just mentioned are ready to go. They're just not the beds. Now, why would somebody not want to come there when we're going to give them 3 meals a day, a roof over their head, an outside area, drug treatment, all the stuff that's going to change their life? Oh, you don't want to come here and live? You want to die in the street? Well, you're not going to die in the street, you're going to die in jail because you're not going to ruin the rest of this city. It's illegal to do that if we have beds.
Okay.
Now,
One
I just want to make the ask now.
Go on.
On behalf of Isaac and myself, all we want from you is, certainly we'll talk to you about if you want to be our lenders, that's wonderful. We thank you for being here, and Arnie. But what we really need is when you talk to elected officials, when you talk to your friends in the Chamber of Commerce and your neighbors, please ask them when this becomes public, which it should in about another month, please ask for their support. And if you would, call us directly if you have any other questions. But we really appreciate you, Arnie, being here, and we just ask that you can be supportive of our project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.